Good evening. I will call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for April 25th, 2024, North Platte Public Schools. I would like to mention the Open Meetings Act. This is the act in Nebraska which legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is posted in the boardroom. However, there was a update recently, as the governor signed it into law. There was an emergency declaration
Emergency clause.
piece. And so if you're interested in that, that is on a piece of paper on the table near the door. So Sheila, would you please call roll?
Joanne Green,
Present.
Cindy O'Connor, present. Skip Altsik,
Present.
Angela Blaze, present. Matthew Peterson,
Present.
Emily Garrett.
Present.
I would also like to remind everyone of the purpose and direction for North Platte Public Schools, which is to prepare all students to be productive, responsible citizens in a safe, caring, supportive learning environment. Our direction is to prepare every student for success through high-quality educational programs delivered by highly effective educators who use innovative, research-based strategies in a safe, supportive environment in collaboration with family, businesses, and community members. We need a motion for approval of the publication of our meeting tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve the publication for tonight's committee of the whole.
And second.
Roll call.
Cindy O'Connor. Here. Oh, yes. Skip Altsik,
Aye.
Angela Blaze.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Joanne Green.
Aye, that passes. Now we need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I move for the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Skip Altsik,
Aye.
Angela Blaze.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Joanne Green.
Aye,
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
and that passes. Now I will ask everyone to join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item that we will address is our board engagement. And this is something that we talk about during each committee as a whole. So before I invite board members to share their reports on school visits, I would like to kind of make an addition to this piece. And that will be that whether you were or you weren't able to get to a school activity or to visit a school this month, I would like you to share something positive about our district, or something great about something that has been happening in our district. There have been some really nice honors that have been earned by district personnel over the past few months, and some really great achievements by students. So since I'm just kind of putting this out here tonight, if you can't necessarily think of anything to share right away, then don't worry, you're off the hook. but if you can, that would be great. Erica recently received a really nice award, so just mention that and kudos to her. So we appreciate all the work that you do. And so with that, I'll open it up to school visits and any reports that anyone would like to share.
I was able to go to the Buffalo Early Learning Center in Lincoln Elementary this last week, and I got to see the kids at home, some of the teachers and the staff, and of course the buildings looked great. The custodians that were walking around were working very hard when we were there, so that was nice. I did love to see the collaboration that our preschools and our Head Start have, so that was really exciting to me. With them being all in the same building, it's kind of helpful with the referrals that they're getting. They mentioned that too. So I like that. And then another positive thing that's more sports oriented, but we do have bulldog going to UNL next year for Montana.
We do.
Yes, I was very proud of Mr. Jennifer.
This week, Stuart and I toured to Washington, so, one of the schools we had not really made our round to with our building committee last year, so, Stuart and I decided we'd start there. Because we got there a little early before school started, but we were also there with school, students were coming in, and so, it was fun to see that the students were doing walking club to get started in the morning and everything, and, she reported there's a lot of students that participate in that. I also saw the breakfast program, which they take to the classrooms, and so I appreciated that students are able to have that when they get there and kind of get started today. But we always talk about the school look great, lots of good things going on there. I saw the book vending machine, which is really cool. I thought that was pretty neat. And then she was kind of explaining structure and how, right now there's a couple 2-track and a couple 1-track, and how they'll work on that next year when those classes shift and everything. So I appreciated being there and seeing everything. And then a couple other things, I did make it to the first ever flat baseball game that we had a couple of weeks ago. So that was fun. Beautiful day. Lots of people were there. There was a lot of excitement. So they're obviously doing well this year, and I hope that we'll continue to do that the rest of the season. And then last Friday, I went to the soccer game, and I got to see the big screen in action, which was really fun. It's cool to see the cameras that are working during the game, and I know we've got some plans to kind of implement, to work on our curriculum with that. So that's exciting, and it's a great asset we have, and something that obviously a lot of districts don't have. And so I think it will continue to be a good benefit for our students.
I went to Lincoln School with Stuart. And Stuart and Mrs. Larson showed us around the building, and it looked really nice in the building. She showed me one room that they do the Harry Potter reading for the 4th grade class, and there were candles hanging from the ceiling. That was pretty cool. And she said that 75% of the 4th graders are in that. They said they really enjoy it. Then Mr. Peterson was very nice and took me over to Adams and took me into Mrs. Kelly's class. She is business, marketing, and information tech. And it was very nice because they let me sit down at one of the computers. She asked one of the girl students to show me some programs. And some of the boys came over and they said, "Oh, no, have her do this one. No, have her do this one." Which was fun. And it was a typing, it was like a typing test, but it was AI. And as you typed, it would tell you in red what was wrong, what punctuation was wrong. It was really cool. I really enjoyed that. So we had a good time over there. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me do it.
I didn't attend a school this month. We are attending Lincoln tomorrow. I am with Stuart, but I have attended several middle school track meets. We have a granddaughter that competes. But they let all the kids compete at the middle school, which I think is really good. And the way the coaches work with the kids is really tremendous, really positive. And the girls, I'm watching the girls, so they really root for each other, really well. And I think that's really, really good. Then on Monday, I attended the Eisenhower choir concert of kindergarten, 3rd grade together. And they sang 6 songs. And I think, you see the number of kids up there at once with those classes and how many they are. And they had choreography things going on. And the last song was really good. It was about rainbows. So each row had a colored scarf that they had around their necks that they took off. And then it was their color. They would wave it as they said the color, purple or orange, it was really neat to watch. And Mrs. Nemick controlling them all, I thought really, it was great. It really was. It was a lot of fun to see. And, you know, those are just some examples of the great things that we have, whether it's extracurricular or it's in school things that we have going on with the teachers that we have and the great things that they are doing with the students.
I'll share next. I do not have a school visit to report on this month. I had a couple that fell before last committee of the whole and none that have been in between these two. But one thing that I have, so I'm in the preschool phase of life with my little one. And so all of our peers are at that phase of life. And so, I've seen lots of really cute posts of like kindergarten announcements where kids have committed that they're going to kindergarten. And I just thought that that was kind of a fun way, I guess, to build some excitement over that. I think some kids are probably nervous about going to kindergarten, and so that kind of makes it a fun thing. And I know that's been a collaboration then with some of our high school students to help facilitate that. So I thought that that was that's a positive thing to see that collaboration there and that school pride. And so, yeah, I think it's cute.
So I had opportunity to be in the high school and, Mr. Spatansky had a visit with me about some of the signage that he's hoping to get approved for installation in the high school. If it is approved, I think it will be a great addition because it will just be something that's more visual, so people that are strangers to our building will know where bathrooms are or classrooms are a little bit more easily than having to walk down the hall and actually find those rooms. And then he also told me about some new technology, and I'm sorry I didn't catch what it was called, but it is in the science department and it's going to help students in their learning around some of the principles of physics. And he was really excited about it and told me a lot of information about it. And so it would be, he and I talked about that if it's possible, it might be something fun to showcase at one of our board meetings this fall. And so we'll see. And then he did tell me, even though I asked Dr. Rhodes and we won't get an actual ACT report until possibly June or later.
Well, you know, since that is the state test, the state that'll all be embargoed. I mean, we'll get internal information, but it's embargoed until, you know, it's been what the week of Thanksgiving generally is by the time they lift the embargo. So it might be later.
But he was really excited about some of the preliminary results that he had seen, and they just noted that they felt like they were seeing improvements in our ACT scores. So that was really neat. I also wanted to just mention, there was a local business that I saw Dr. Rhodes' name on a sign that was hanging on one of their doors. And so I just wanted to mention how appreciative that I am of him and how he's really gotten involved in our community. Not that he wasn't involved in the community, but went away for a while and now is back and has really done a lot as far as attending meetings and being involved in supporting the district and our families and students in the community. I just wanted to share how much I appreciate those efforts, so thank you.
One of the things I forgot to mention is that when we were at Washington, Scale was talking about potentially looking at doing some different formatting next year with students entering the building and exiting the building. And she was kind of describing what she was planning, and Stuart immediately responded with security and safety. So always on his mind, but
Yes.
she's got some ideas to hopefully help with the flow and everything. But Stuart's making sure that whatever we do, it's going to be taken care of. So.
All right, so the next part of board engagement that I wanted to address is the board self-assessment. So as mentioned in prior meetings, the board recently completed a board self-assessment. And for the benefit of the public, I wanted to share some information about the assessment. The Nebraska School Board Association website says the following. All effective organizations have a method for determining the strength of their performance. Effective boards conscientiously decide the goals to which they aspire to perform, and when they determine a process for evaluating whether those goals have been met. Effective boards evaluate themselves because they are committed to accountability. A regular assessment assures that the board is operating at maximum efficiency and that it is adding value to the district it governs. Self-evaluation allows the board to step back from everyday business and candidly reflect on how well they are meeting their responsibilities. Self-evaluation helps the board bring forth ideas and issues that, if not discussed, might become major sources of frustration. Only when the board conscientiously draws conclusions about its own performance can the board take steps to improve. So the last time that the board participated in a self-evaluation, according to the School Board Association, was the late spring of 2021. And so it had been a little bit, some of that was just because we had a change in administration and coming out of COVID and all of those types of things. And so where we had new board members that came on last year, we felt that it was important for us to complete this assessment again. And I'm also going to share a little bit about the process and some of the preliminary outcomes of that survey. So the process, each member of the board was sent via their personal school board email a link to the board self-assessment that, and this assessment has been developed by the Nebraska School Board Association. Board members then answered questions in regard to 9 standards of governance identified by the School Board Association, and they were able to rank how they felt the board was performing on each standard. The 9 standards are mission, vision, goals, that's all one, policy governance, community engagement, accountability and student achievement, advocacy, district resources, board operations, and professional development. Once complete, the assessment was returned electronically to the School Board Association, and then that association creates a report for the full board. Each board member's answers are anonymous. And then based on the compiled scores, the board is able to see where they and other board members feel confident in their governance and where there is an opportunity to make some adjustments or where there may be a knowledge gap for some board members. The board then met with a mediator, which is part of what we did last week in our board retreat with the Nebraska School Board Association. And during that time with the mediator, we were able to discuss the results of the survey and begin to discuss as a board what we would like to see as goals for improvement. The mediator took notes and is in the process of compiling the notes. I talked to her earlier this week, hoping that we'd have results by tonight, and it didn't happen. So from those notes and our discussion, the mediator will recommend goals for the board to discuss further, and we'll do this in a public meeting. Of the 9 standards that the board felt that we were most confident in were the areas of policy governance, community engagement, and board superintendent relations. Areas that the board would like to sharpen their skills or still need to learn more about include advocacy at the state and local level, district resources such as understanding budget and budgeting process better. And we've actually been having conversations about that part since, well, I guess for the last few months at least. And Stuart's been doing a really good job of helping us understand TIOSA, and tonight we're going to talk about how individual building budgets are built. And so we've been already kind of starting that process. And then the final standard of our focus over the next few months will be accountability and student achievement, which we do talk about on a regular basis, but there's a few things in that area where we feel like we need to have a greater understanding, especially of our underserved populations of students and how we can engage them even better, especially as we anticipate future growth of our district. As a board, we always have focus on all 9 of the standard areas, but there are times, especially when there is a significant amount of turnover on the board, And so sometimes there's education pieces that are missed or there's pieces of school governance that take time to fully understand. Often for new board members and sometimes old board members, there's also historical knowledge that's lacking. The board self-assessment process is a type of strategic planning process that is undertaken by the board. And by taking the self-assessment and having conversations around specific standard areas, we're able to elevate the performance of the board and hopefully help our students and our school district overall to shine. So I guess I would just ask if there's any of the board members that have anything to add or thoughts or comments about our discussion that we had last week.
I thought we had really good discussion on several areas that lasted, you know, I mean, we're not talking 2 or 3 minutes, but over a period of time, we had really good discussion, specifically in some of the areas where we thought we could get sharper. I think, is that how you said it, Joanne? We could get sharper and work more in detail on those areas. And I thought those were really good discussions that we had at the time with that.
All right. So when we get the goals back from NASB, then we'll be bringing those to a meeting. I'm not sure if it'll be a board meeting or a committee meeting, but we'll definitely be having more conversations around several of the items in that agenda. Trying to see if I can get down to my third point here. So. Trying to be able to get down to my note. There it is. Okay. So just the final part of our board engagement is upcoming calendar items. So just would like to remind everybody that we have the external review team visit this Sunday, and we will be meeting here at 4:30. And then, of course, we have our regular board meeting on May 13th and committee of the whole on May 30th, just for future planning. And this is a little bit further out, but we'll be having our session with the School Board Association on the Gallup strengths, and that will be before our committee meeting on June 27th. And then we'll have an opportunity to help with the distribution of the mobile food pantry on July 9th. And we'll have more details to come on all of those items as they get closer, but just wanted to know.
Will you email that July 9th out?
I will have that in tomorrow's update.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I won't remember.
I'll also have graduation reminder too.
I know when graduation is.
Well, I mean, who's going to want to attend
Perfect.
and sit on stage?
I was
Yep,
just gonna
that'll
ask
be
if
in
you can
tomorrow's
send
update.
details as far as
You bet.
when and where and. Not that I mean, we know when and where, but like specifically.
And then, remember May 20th is the Cheers to Summer event the Foundation hosts. If you haven't been, plan on stopping out for a little bit. It's fun to see the excitement, from all the teachers and stuff. They really enjoy that event. So I think it starts around 3:15. So. Yeah. Give me okay. Yeah.
Okay. So now we will, first of all, before I introduce our next speakers, I need to mention that it's After School Professionals Week. And that week is April 22nd to the 26th, and we have some after school professionals that are gonna present to us tonight.
Thank
So-
you. See if I can remember Kyle's directions here.
He's coming.
coming.
Kyle.
It's just yellow.
Okay. We good on that? Our thing is over here.
Yeah.
Okay,
There we go.
there we go. Okay. So thank you so much for the introduction. I think this is 9 slides, so for those of you that are used to us talking, we're gonna keep it a lot shorter. So Kids Club has been in North Platte now for 22 years. We have over 300 kids in the program this year, hovering over 30 staff in the school year, about 45 in the summer. It says 14 high school staff, but we're actually up to 18 high school staff. We have 8 college staff, 7 site locations. 4 of those are still the original 21st century sites. It says 180 students each summer. That started at the very beginning as 60. So as you can see, the progression of the growth. Last year, I think we were right at that 180. We're a little right at 190 for this year, so we have gone up a little bit every year.
And we have a
And-
wish list.
Yes, we have a long wish
Pretty
list,
big.
so. We continue to take people onto that because stranger things have happened that right before we start, a couple of 4th grade students would move and we'd have 4th grade openings, so that's why we continue that wish list. And we have over 30 community partners, and that has been directly, with Delena's intervention on all of that. She was brought on a couple of years ago as our community programming coordinator, and so part of the Beyond School Bells grant that we have has her doing 4 hours in the morning, and then she goes and runs Eisenhower after school. So she is coordinating 7 school locations and 32 community partner schedules and layering them in. Someone can't make it, and then where is the available time next time? And so that keeps me sane because I don't think I could have done that without her help. And we are still only serving K through 5. So we had originally had middle school, and that program went away from the 21st century grant, kind of, before my time, so it's been a long time. Our funding sources are, of course, ESSERS, which is about to run out, and so, the 21st century grant, the community partners and staff appreciation meals and things that we do are built into the Beyond School Bells. It's kind of nice to be able to take a new community partner and meet, and have a coffee and just say, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is what we would like to do. And Beyond School Bells really supports that as far as their mission of sustainability past 21st century dollars. Because Beyond School Bells money funds all 7 sites where we can only use 21st century dollars at those LJW and Cody. So we are waiting to hear about the renewal of Cody's grant. And I don't know why the official announcement from NDE is just a little behind than normal. We've been assured by our liaison from the Department of Ed that we have that grant. It just has not been announced officially yet. Then we have the horse club that is finishing up a 6-year span. And those are supposed to be coming back up for reapplication through the Nebraska lottery. So we're hoping to do that. Those unfortunately are only 21st century dollars, so they have to be used in a program that has been established with 21st century for over 5 years. So we are only able to offer that at Lincoln, Jefferson, Washington, and Cody elementaries at this time. And then our foundation does sponsor a homework club, which they pay completely through a donor. But we did just do a little write-up for all of our kids to say why they love Kids Club. And one of them actually said the homework club was their favorite one. So I thought I shared that with Terry and said, look, this is great. The kids are loving coming. So then, of course, we'd never say no to a private donation. So
On ESSERS 3, I want to let the board know, we had multiple ESSERS 3. We always talk about what I do on ESSERS 3,
Correct.
which is for construction.
mine was
And
through 21st century,
grant.
specifically for after school.
And then Brandy had another ESSERS 3 money that came through for, we paid for social workers out of there. So it'd been, extended school year services, right?
All our mental health.
Yeah. Yep. So I just wanted to make sure we clarified it, that it's not the one that I talked about, but it's, we had multiple.
Well,
arms
the ESSER
coming in.
3 fell into different grant funds through the state, through the department.
Yes.
So the ESSER 3 is a federal grant, and then it was distributed through several ND grants, so.
So I had to earmark my portion specifically for things just with us. So, new partnerships, I just kind of wanted to throw those up here because they're brand new. Last year, we had written this into one of our Beyond School Bells Summer of Youth grants. We were awarded that grant, and that covered us to partner with the canteen district, and our kids went, just our 5th grade, our oldest kids did an entrepreneurial club with all of our downtown businesses. So they made flower bouquets with flower market, and they went in and we had permission from parents, they got haircuts or their nails done at the salon downtown, and we did t-shirts for the club at Whitetail, so you can see them doing all those things. They made their own custom sundaes at Double Dips. They had dinner at the Cedar Room, they served each other, learned about service and got to tour the kitchen. And so lots of things that our kids had said, you know, we've never seen this. This is so cool. And just exposure, those reasons up there, why we put them out in the community. And then Delena's dad happens to be a certified dive instructor. So he actually took our kids and taught them a scuba diving lesson in the rec center's pool one morning. They closed it for us and we got to do that. So that was pretty neat stuff too. We have something in the works with Nebraska Farm Bureau for this summer. It's a community event that will be called Agriculture on the Bricks. And we will have different booths and things. It's kind of still in the planning phases, but we do have, I think, 20 people committed to that.
Yeah.
To come put up career exploration, doing things with the extension. We'll have Kubota, we'll have tractors there. The kids will get to climb on. So a lot, yeah, free lunch. So we have a lot of fun things planned with that. So we're really excited about that new partnership with them. And then last year I was chosen as one of the 10 folks that are in that bottom picture from around the country to be part of the Achievery through the National After School Association. And we concluded that in November, and all of us had to come together with a project that would essentially help other after-school leaders across the United States, and I guess really anywhere, come up with really quick, easy to get to lesson plans and things. And so one of the things that we did was go through all of those resources and then combine them into really easy to access links. And they are all on the Kids Club tab now of our website, where anyone, if we present anywhere nationally or in Nebraska, we can just reference, you know, getting on there. There are lots of resources then for other people to get to. So that was a really fun experience for me. And it was a lot of extra work, but it was a really good learning process. And I was really privileged to be a part of that. So this is really neat. So last year, I think some of you know that the district as a whole donated outdated curriculum to a sister school that we kind of adopted in Honduras. And so this was a quote from Michael Humphreys, who reported to us at the end of last summer that because of everyone's contributions, Diamond Rock school kids are now reading English at the 3rd grade level. Thank you, everyone. You have helped make a significant change in kids' lives. So this is something that we're going to continue. You can see them holding their Kids Club towel we sent over. So this has just been real great. We have FaceTime from their location. The kids brought different things that they wanted to learn about Honduras, and we kind of did a little study, and so kind of made us make this summer now country themed. So our kids are going to have a country. They're theming all of their activities around their specific country. But these teachers, inspired by our generosity, invited Delana and I to come on a mission trip there. And our room and board is sponsored, and we will fundraise for, you know, how to get over there and transportation and different things. And then fundraise for more supplies and different things that we can do. Every window in their school was broken out. They had a roof there. Yeah, the roof was missing. The kids have to have those specific uniforms in order to go to school. And they're expensive and hand sewn by one woman in their community. And so they have to fundraise to buy these uniforms for them. And, you know, really, if they learn English as a second language, it really secures their future, because tourism is, you know, they're not doing any manufacturing and things out of their country. And so it's really a tourism industry. And so parents of these children in the village are just so excited when their kids are learning English. And it happens to be Delana's dad and stepmom who are doing the work to build the things at the school that these kids, the windows are being replaced and all of those things. So this has been a super fun project, and we hope it goes a lot farther. They have sponsored those teachers to come back here, and hopefully they come back here and come into our Kids Club program and teach our kids some things and do some different things with that. So that's been really fun to be a part of there. And these are our crown jewel right now. We are being asked to lead 2 or 3 different presentations. I was just asked this afternoon to do one, on a webinar. This is our high school. This is why our high school students are invaluable for us. They host these clubs. So they have a makerspace club. We have done binary beating, the cheerleading, Minecraft. They come in every Friday and switch schools. So if they're assigned to McDonald, all Monday through Thursday, they're switching locations every Friday, and bringing all of these clubs in. And Beyond School Bells is extremely interested in this, and they fund the entire process. And through it all, they learned of Noah Henderson, who was part of our high school advisory team. And Noah is just kind of went above and beyond. He came to us in elementary, after being placed with his grandma, and she needed somewhere for him and his siblings to go after school. So he started at Eisenhower Kids Club, and he submitted a video actually to Beyond School Bells as a testimonial to his time in Kids Club and what it meant to him as a student, and now what it means to him as a more grown student and able to give back to the kids in our program. So we were asked to interview, I was invited to interview him in front of, I think there were 150 people at the conference in March and in Lincoln, yes. And so there probably wasn't a dry eye in the room. I know I was crying, Delia was crying. So he just really knocked it out of the park, and his heart and soul just shone through to that. Then we were invited to do a Zoom call with a woman who was doing a whole blog about him. And that will come out next month. So we will hopefully have that published soon. But so proud of the high school kids and what they do. And I think that they are underrated sometimes as to what they can contribute. And us sitting around and having that high school advisory team, we go once a month to the high school when they're out at that early time, and we sit in the career center with them and we plan and we go over things. And I tell them, you might be the most new staff, but you have fresh ideas. So we're not going to come to you and say, well, we always do it this way, so we're never going to do anything new. Bring that stuff to us. And they really do. And they do a really good job of seeing the needs of our kids. Some of them come in with pretty heavy stuff in the afternoon. They're tired, they're ready to be done. Our staff is busy checking everyone in, doing that technical stuff. And they're really the ones doing those check-ins with our kids and making sure, what can I do? Well, how was your day? Tell me about the puppy you got. It's just still really establishing those relationships with them. So this is just shout out to them, all of our staff, for After School Appreciation Week. And thank you for having us here. And obviously your support over the last, 22 years that we've been here has been something that a lot of after-school programs don't get in their districts. And so North Platte is always talked about very highly from the program all the way to the administration and then the board, at how supported we are here. And we're really lucky, and we know that. So thank all of you for that support.
I would too also just would like to invite any of you to visit us.
Yes.
Anytime, any 7 of our elementary sites this summer, we'll be there at Jefferson all summer, and anytime.
Come swim with us.
Yeah.
200 kids in the pool. Who doesn't want to do that?
Kindergarten is the best area.
But if you have questions or anything,
I think you guys get to have the most fun. I mean, let's be honest.
we think so too.
Yeah, you do some really neat things, and it's been fun. I've had kids in school for a lot of the years that you've been here, and it's just really neat for me to have seen how your program has grown and developed, and just all of the really great opportunities that you offer to our students. So
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
I'm very, very proud. to be
The
part of
Kids
this
Club
whole-
program here in North Platte is, it's one of our shining light programs. And there is a reason why this after school and summer program works like it does. And is kind of the envy of other communities and school districts in the state and the surrounding area. It's because of these two in the country. They have a huge passion for kids, a huge empathy for kids. They're just tremendous And it's a program over 22 years. You know, some of us have been in the community district off and on, and some of you have been here for a long, long time, and it looks so much different and has grown so much where we started 22 years ago and even 15 years ago and what it's grown. And this really is an expanded opportunity for kids that a lot of communities and school districts aren't able to offer. The experiences that these kids have after school. Talk about entrepreneurs, you know, with K-5 students, it's phenomenal. And so, you know, just those added opportunities for kids, the experience they get to have in our community that they might not otherwise have. So tremendous, tremendous program, but it doesn't happen without great leadership, and that's because of these two. Thank you very much.
Well, and the fact that we have 30-some community partners shows also how important it is.
How committed the community is.
We have a
Absolutely.
lot of community members whose children have gone through the program and know how great it is. And so, yeah, I think that's a great collaboration to have, and thank you too for what you do and everything. One of the things we talked about is teacher shortage, and we're gonna have a staffing update here pretty soon. Have you seen some of these high school kids who have, you know, developed this passion for education or
Yes,
looking at?
and I think we were saying the other day, we wish we had tallied, because I know there are several teachers in our district right now who did start at Kids Club. Lots of secretaries, a couple of our nurses. So I think that, yes, the answer to that is yes, and I wish I had tracked what that actually is.
We have, college staff as well that completely changed their major after they've started with us. Decide that education is what they want to do instead of, you know, medical, anything. I mean, it's.
Yeah, it is neat to
Yeah.
see them do that. And then the helping hands kids who do that, the mentoring, and then come to us. And so they're just very much aware of a career path that they want to take after working in such an immersive way with kids. And whether that's therapy or, you know, counseling or whatever it is that they go into, if it's teaching, all of them are better for having the experience of working with our kids. Our kids teach me more than I've ever learned in a classroom. I'm like, wow. So, but again, we couldn't do our crazy harebrained schemes and ideas unless the people up here in the trenches were carrying that out. And so our staff is just vital to the success of all of the things that we could possibly fund or come up with. They run it. If, like you said, community partners are coming into chaos, they're probably not gonna want to come back. And they keep coming back and they call us without us even pursuing them sometimes to come in. So that's such a huge testimonial to our staff and their management of all of the things we do in the after school time. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle. Stop share, right
All right.
there.
Mr. Mills, hopefully you have good news for us.
Hard to follow that app. Who put that agenda together? Well, we've been laser focused, I think you guys know, on probably 6 positions that we just have to fill. The good news is we knocked down 3 of them. Erica did a fantastic job of recruiting an SLP that we're gonna have virtual next year. So that was one position. Then we had to have a couple elementary teachers for elementary schools to continue. On the 15th of this month, and again on the 17th, we hired 2 elementary teachers in the SLP. So that part is really good. So there's 3. Now we're laser focused on 3 more the positions that we just have to have, journalism, English, and math. So we continue to focus on those, and I may or may not have been recruiting in the room earlier, journalism people. But I know we're all recruiting, and that's something Dr. Rhodes has said quite often, that everybody's connected and we're reaching out and looking for all those different spots that we can fill. It's not dire as we look around. Yeah, we need these positions, but when we look around, I'm glad I'm here in North Platte and not other places. So we have great staff and everybody's reaching out. We were at 30 and 30. We had 30 resignations and 30 hires. We did lose one, and a very early hire that we hired for elementary that was out of state. Things didn't work out for that individual to come here. So we did lose that first grade teacher over at Jefferson, but we've got that replaced. And then you'll see on some, resignations also, you'll be seeing a pair that's, going to resign this year. Pretty excited, been with us for 43 years. So we have a lot of longevity, in programs like this, where kids get involved in that and go into education and come back. So people like that, just so, we really want to celebrate individuals like that. I just think their career, doing this. So that's where we're at. We're laser focused on music as well. We've done a lot of music conversations over the past couple of weeks with a lot of people involved in it. And I think we have a really nice solution for that we'll be rolling out, next week. So again, it takes all of us to be part of this process and to walk through these things. Any questions on staffing?
So I'm sure this has happened before, I mean, what does the district do when you got something specific like a journalism teacher and we can't fill that? Are there, I mean, does the state give any sort of leniency with those types of positions that are harder to fill, and can you?
Not really leniency. We have to fill it, so we'll have to find a way to, maybe piece it together if we have to. We talked about maybe covering the photography classes and then covering the journalism pieces, and we're taking the online newspaper, putting that to another staff. So it's just kind of putting all those pieces together and dividing it out if we have to. Not the great, but it's, again, I think if we look at it as a temporary solution for 24, 25, we can get that put together.
Every fall, ND expects school districts to complete a Rule 10 checklist. And of course, Rule 10 is your accreditation rule for public schools in the state. So there are school districts that don't meet accreditation on a given year for whatever circumstance, could be instructional hours or something like that. And the state they'll audit that information then. And they usually ask, it's kind of a corrective action plan. And how are you going to correct this deficiency within Rule 10? So the state does work with school districts if something were to happen that a school district's not meeting one of the requirements within Rule 10. But they expect you correct it eventually as well. And we're certainly not in that situation, but ND is very flexible. They understand where we're at. There's 980 job openings across the state in our public schools in Nebraska right now. I think I might have mentioned a week ago that in a meeting I was at in Lincoln that LPS and OPS are really suffering right now, and districts smaller than us have 15, 20 openings right now. So I think Mr. Mills is right. We have some positions to fill, but we're certainly in a better position than maybe some other school districts are. So.
Hopefully we don't, but if we have to kind of piece together, for instance, a journalism class with some other teachers, kind of filling in where they maybe are able to, how does that impact? Can you maybe educate us as a board a little bit on, like, do those teachers then receive some additional pay for taking on an extra workload, or how does that impact so that we're not potentially overburdening some of our other staff?
Right.
We want to make sure we keep them happy. How does that process look?
Well, that's a great question, and we do that currently. We have many staff members that are teaching that fourth period, so we do that through the finance department now that we pay those folks. So that would continue. So we've done that for quite some time of teachers picking up that fourth period. So a lot of times that's what we have to do. So instead of having a plan, you're teaching, but what do? We then pay them for cover. So great question.
This is really nice, Kevin.
Got all about it. Thank you. Brandon Peterson has developed this. Thank you, Brandon. This is our recruiting tool. And I just I was thinking about this for tonight, that what do I actually do out there on the road? This is the form or the piece of paper that we talk to students with. This kind of gives a nice little snapshot of everything. So I wanted to see that. And then Brandon is now developing another little booklet that we're gonna use for recruiting for next year, because when we go out recruiting, we always look and see what everybody else is doing too. And so I found one that was pretty cool, so he's putting that together, we'll probably have that ready. We'll bring that back. So I just wanted to see that, you folks to see that, what we hand out.
It is, it's very informative and, you know, and I thought the coloring and everything really grabbed your eye. So nice job, Brandon.
Thank you.
Okay, Stuart, I think we're ready to talk school finance.
Let me get,
Are you muted? Just wanted to be sure.
Proactive.
Did it on your own.
Get it.
all right. I'm going to go to full screen on this. Did not go to full screen. So close on this back. What I did was at the retreat, the board is requested to look at all non-personnel expenditures. So one of the items is when you look at this report, it's the non-personnel expenditures, not relative to grants. So we take this. Do it that way, but I was trying to do full screen.
Can you remove that sidebar? And the PDF there.
That's why I want to go to full screen.
Kyle?
Okay, so the little arrow next to export PDF.
You spoke way too soon. That's what you're saying.
See, I went to here to go this one here.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh. It's not your fault.
See?
That's better.
That's okay.
Doesn't show there.
So part of the retreat asked for non-personnel items in here, and it's not connected to grants, so we've done everything but grants. Because obviously those are driven by revenue coming in from the state for federal purposes, so I've separated those out. So this is relative to just instruction in our classroom. So second of all, I broke it out to where you can see the individual areas that I have to report on to the state. So for example, the 300 object series is purchase services. I'm just going to quickly go through those. 400 is purchase property services. 500 is other purchase services. This is by the state, so it's not like and then 600 is supplies, 700 is property, 800 is debt service, and 900 is basically transfers. So when you start looking at it, some of the items are pretty much, the object code addresses really what it is. For example, accounting services, not too hard. That's for the auditor when they're coming in. Legal services for our attorneys. Mileage to parents, that is for parents who drive their children to school. Big one is the ones that live out, by the lake or north of North Platte, where they come in and go to their residence school, and therefore we reimburse them for 4 miles or greater process.
And that is state statute, and because we don't provide our own transportation, correct? Okay.
Rule 91 and Rule 92 are transportation rules for public schools. And it's the 4 miles to the school door.
Right.
And so either you bus if they're 4 miles or further out, or you pay the state reimbursement mileage rate. And do we do that on a monthly basis? Or
No, we do it on every semester. So parents, well, and they have the option, parents can either request semester payments or they can request yearly payments. And a lot of them just keep that and then use it for what they need accordingly down the road. And it's 245% of one-way reimbursement. So if it's 7 miles, it's 3 times the number of days in attendance, times the current rate at the IRS level. We don't have any changes. We don't have any control on that one either. That will be reported by the IRS every December, and the state sends out information. So,
Well, I know you looked into this a couple years ago, but like busing, but it's cheaper for us to do this.
it is because, first of all, we would have to maintain and purchase, a myriad of buses. Second of all, trying to find drivers as we are, trying to do that, and then the insurance on them also. So there's multiple items as far as what we're gonna do. So, yep. But thank you for asking that question, because, we try to be at least efficient as possible. Mileage to staff members, that one, we have multiple staff, and I can look over at Erica. She has staff members that go between buildings for resource or speech, as we talked about it. And so we pay them a reimbursement where it's sort of, they have their standard routes, and we calculate it out. Janelle and I go through there, and then in the process, we give them 2 payments, one in October, one in March, based upon their distribution. Based upon what.
Can we go back to the mileage to parents? Just so I make sure that my understanding is correct on this too. So it's to the closest school. So if they have multiple children in the district, it would be to the school, the mileage reimbursement is to the school closest to their home.
No, it's gonna be, if you live out south and you have a child that goes to Adams and the high school, it's high school,
And so the furthest.
the furthest.
Okay,
But if you have a child that goes to Adams and Madison, it's Adams, because they can get on a bus and drive to Madison. But if the parents chooses to drive their child to Madison, then that's on them. We only calculate for there. So there's a lot of variables that go in regards to looking at where parents are going and what we have to do between person. And same way with the north.
It's only for, so like the example you gave with Adams and the high school, they don't get the Adams payment and the high school.
No,
payment.
it's just one. And then we have to look at the number of days in the. Good questions. Other professional services, I really just want to touch on this quickly because it is a lot there. But, I'm gonna hit the high ones. 300,000 is for our SROs that we have in the district, and we have 3 of them. Then we have 450,000 in SPED that we contract with whether it's with ESU or with, school psychology services or something else. We're having to do that. And Kevin just mentioned too, that we're contracting with another person. So we're trying to make sure we have the resources available for our students. Money toward our insurance company, so we pay up some funds to help administer our insurance company. And then just some large projects that we have identified within the maintenance department. So those are what we came up with in some of the areas of contracted services. Other than that, distance education only, that's helpful in our state aid calculation, but that's really just telephone services. Yeah, simpler way to do it. I really won't talk too much on purchase property services, but you can see it's utilities, repair, maintenance, and rentals.
What are the rentals for?
Have it here. Only 1 minute.
Does that include the storage building on their store?
No, it doesn't. That one's paid out of the building fund at this point in time. This is for, we transfer some money to the depreciation for bus. And we have, we're required to pay that out of 442 for bus acquisition. And then rentals of equipment and vehicles, we have 50,000 set aside. So if we have to rent a bus, this is within the transportation area. that we have that fund set aside so that we can rent a bus. And it all depends upon a year. I'm gonna say 1 year, we could be renting buses and dealing with breakdowns, and then the next year, we're all fine and dandy and it's no big deal, but it's just, I don't know what happens, but it's just those years that goes on.
So,
And, go ahead.
so with, items, so I'm looking at like legal services, it says there's an available balance there. With the rentals, there's an available balance. So do those just move over to next year's budget, or what happens when there's
So-
an available balance that doesn't get used?
This report is from September 1 through the end of April. We still have May, June, July, and August that will have some expenditures coming out of there. So it all depends upon what we're looking. So for example, mileage to parents, we've only expended 28,000. We'll have a chunk probably coming out at the end of May, 1st of June for all the parents. So if funds are left over, nothing gets rolled over, it just goes away and then we rebuild a budget for certain ones according to what we've expended in the past. So for example, mileage to parents have grown from about 175 to 190, not because we have more students, because we know we don't, but it's because the feds have increased mileage rate for parent reimbursement. Legal services, we just look at the trends of what we've needed and then continually make sure, because that would be similar to rental buses. I mean, 1 year we could be fine on attorney fees, and then the next year, all depends upon what's happening within the legal area that we may have to increase that to do. So certain costs, and we'll go into how we address supplies for schools later, but certain costs, we try to look at historical stuff to make sure we keep that in line with where we have been in the past. The 500 series, obviously property and liability insurance, and every year I work with Tanner from Hub to make sure where that liability insurance is going to be going from. And in that, what you're seeing is that we budgeted 680,000. I transferred 645,000 from there because it's contracted services up into the board area for working with Hub, and then the remaining 635 is just for liability services, workers' comp, transfer vehicle insurance, and then E&O coverage for the board. So it's all encompassing of what we have to do for insurance. And all, for the finance committee, I've always done this in the past, and I'll bring it to the committee of the whole. We'll look at a historical perspective of the last 5 years of what insurance costs have done, as well as what we're proposing for the next year, and that won't come out until September at this point in time. We'll get preliminary stuff, but then insurance companies are already putting together items for the summer to get us ready. But with building costs and everything else increasing, they always add, 10 to 15% on insurance just to cover themselves. So travel, meal, hotel, rentals, I wanted to make a comment on that one, 580. So a lot of that's what it's called within NDE, but we use it for, a lot of it is for field trips. Or, we did build in professional development, but we took some money out of there and then paid another share out of Title I and Title II. And then, we had in-service for some of the other areas, such board, a pool for administrators, and then, other entities such as, and I'll pick on Kevin a little bit as he goes on recruitment, and when it comes back, that's part of it that's coming out of there also. So that's what we pay for out of 580 travel, motel, and rent.
Can I ask a question about postage real quick?
Mhm.
So that would be an area that if we have to do the budget. I don't remember what it's called exactly.
Public
Yeah, the public hearing.
Oh, the joint public hearing.
Yeah, so because we have to pay a portion of the mailing of those postcards that go out.
Right.
Correct, so.
Yes.
So if we don't participate in the joint public hearing, then that
We
saves us.
can save us money, but, it's always into the next fiscal year because that goes in September and we get billed for it. In supplies, and if I could preface this by saying, we're gonna talk about supplies in a little bit. I don't wanna talk about it now, because I wanna get into how building budgets are allocated so that we can address it there. Otherwise, a lot of it is taken up by heating, fuel, and electricity. And we can always plan for electricity, it's roughly 5% every year that the city gets marked up and it's passed on to the consumer. Heating fuel, we try to look at trends, trying to look at what we've had in the past 2 years, and then noting where the cost of natural gas is on the market, because that's what's driven brought to Northwest Energy. And we get those rate changes in November and April. So in the process, we try to make sure if we're seeing a downtick, then we try to adjust accordingly. If we're seeing an uptick, like 2 years ago, we saw it skyrocketing to about $3 a ton. That all of a sudden we were trying to make sure that we had it covered. Luckily, sometimes it's like with bus transportation, we may get a mild winter. This year we had a mild winter, but last year we had a bitter cold streak in December. And so I was watching that, making sure that we were okay.
And North Platte is one of the few areas in the state that does not have the choice gas program. So whatever Northwestern says is what they say for their per term rate. And Nebraska, and actually through, our public school, kind of this, consortium, the choice gas program for schools is pretty lucrative. And unfortunately, we can't participate in that because Northwestern, we just have Northwestern. Right. So there is no competition in this area in terms of, natural gas.
I do think though, over the years, we've been doing really well at trying to save on those resources by installing LED lighting.
Right.
And a lot of the other updating that we've done in our school.
Right.
So hopefully
We've been able to track that at all yet, like with Adams, that's probably.
Yeah, we've probably
been able to see what that.
Yeah, and
is.
I run reports I would like to do it every month, but as we get data in there, I look at the last 12 months and then the previous 12 months so that Lori and I can do some comparisons in regards to how we're doing overall as far as utility usage, number one, from an overall electricity and natural gas. And then I also try to break it down so you can see a little bit of the difference between the two. But overall, I just want to make sure I have everything budgeted.
Have we thought about turning off the heat and telling them to put on layers like I do at home? That's not
Actually, that is a good point, because actually we do. We have,
like it, you're fine.
I don't know about Blake, Chanel has a heater underneath her desk that goes even in the summer. But we do control all of our buildings in some way. So and I'm Cody, Buffalo, Washington, and I have the other one, I don't have it on me, but those are controlled by a train system one way. Then we have Lincoln, Adams, McDonald, I want to say high school, and then it's going to be Eisenhower is going to be controlled by we call it Honeywell, but it's more of an open source program. And then we have the remaining schools somewhat on an NPPS BoE Honeywell controlled system. So we're monitoring the heat and cooling and all of those. And as Skip knows, in a classroom, we controlled it from 69 to 72. Give them a three temperature variants at all times, and they can't turn it up or can't turn it down because we want to control that energy going on in the building. So we do control it there a lot of the time. And even like on the units that are in here, no matter, they're probably not controlled because McKinley isn't fully on it yet. But the thermostats are still on an automatic setback where once we leave this building, after so many hours, they'll revert themselves back to their program that it's on. Gasoline and diesel, that's basically, a lot of it is our buses, and then obviously a little bit is our maintenance staff. Food service is what we pay for our CEP, lunches, and our breakfast program at the schools, and we did reduce that down for our staff program that we didn't do this year. Books and periodicals. This goes back to Vicki and Lindsay's discussion in regards to our curriculum adoption program. And in the past, we were doing curriculum adoption where we would make sure we could probably set 250 to 350 aside and then smooth it out over a course of years. But the problem was after we came back in from COVID, all of a sudden, those two saw the prices increase dramatically. And so as they started going through the curriculum adoption for the areas that they need, all of a sudden that number increased. We ate as much as we could in depreciation, but then as they go into the adoption this year for math, I had to budget enough to make sure we can do it. And hopefully after, I think it's math this year, that we can start calming that down, start putting money away at a less dollar amount so that over the course of the next 5 years until they go into the next curriculum adoption, we can build that depreciation up, and then we don't have to have the large piece within the budget to help with adoption. So,
Does that include like library books as well?
you're gonna ask me that. Let me look here.
The reason I ask is, aren't we required to
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a certain number each year?
Yeah,
Yes.
so many periodicals, elementary, middle school, and high school.
Yes,
Now, that is a discussion at the state level. On reducing, and maybe even not having that as a requirement in Rule 10. But that is a Rule 10 accreditation.
Because again, that's another cost that we can't
Yes.
control, and if they're
Yes.
requiring.
And that is a real problem with our small rural schools, because that becomes a pretty big ticket item. Because those are expensive. I mean, they're really expensive.
and yes, it does include that.
Thank you.
No problem. Property. Ryan and I are going through it, and I know Teaching and Learning is going through it and addressing technology software that we have in the district. And this runs the gamut between having software for IC, the accounting system, to all the textbook adoptions, which are now mostly digital on our Chromebooks within there. And we're trying to make sure that we have all of our software appropriate for our students and staff embedded in within this number. And we're trying to take care of it. Technology hardware, we set some money aside every month, and we went through it last year in regards to depreciation for computers for staff members as well as students. We moved that piece over to the depreciation fund. We build it up over a course of 5 years, and then we go through the process of replacement. So that's what the hardware is. Furniture and fixtures. It's just a myriad of little things all over, from maintenance to technology, which is additional computers and or servers that they need within their building. I mean, the big one is servers within technology, but then we have other areas at like the high school and or other buildings that have set money aside for furniture and equipment. Dues and fees and miscellaneous expenditures. That one, dues and fees goes along with, people being part of an organization or being responsible in an organization. For example, our library media is part of a media organization to ensure that they are all communicating according across the state, as well as all of our music teachers that are part of their music program. So every person has dues and fees that they pay accordingly. But then in that, our principals, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, our principals and other entities put money aside in miscellaneous, expenditures, because some items per the state have to be paid out of miscellaneous. We can't pay them. We don't have a code, so to speak, that, that we can pay for them from, and they say, no, you use miscellaneous expenditures. So principals, when they allocate their budget, they put some in there because they may be needing not supplies for a classroom, but some item within their building that won't apply to a direct correlation with an object code, but put it in them.
Stuart, does, how about the coding of NASB membership for the board?
That
Does
would
that
be,
fall there? Does that fall up above in one of the?
it falls up
in the
above
300s, okay.
in the 300s.
Okay.
And then finally, if I go to page 8, this is how I allocate by building for supplies for principals to work with teachers. So this has been developed over the course of the last 18 years because I don't believe that a building principal gets the same allotment every year because, you know, as we've seen decline in enrollment, why should you get $100 when you only should really be getting 50? And that's an exaggeration. But what I'm saying is that this formula adjusts according to what the enrollment is at a building level. So that you can see, you know, I try to accommodate for the high school, taking into account that, yes, they have early graduates, so they only need half as much supplies as they would for a full year. And so I try to take into account that one, try to take into account that, what I want to say, Washington and Jefferson, because they have a preschool, I have to take into account a little bit of money that way for preschool. The other piece that has happened this last year, and I want to address that a little bit, because you're going to say, first of all, why has it increased compared to last year? I thought we were decreasing students. And second of all, when you look at elementary allocation compared to middle school allocation, why are the two sort of close? Because elementary, you have less than a middle school in their responsibility. Well, a couple of things happen. Number one, we do not have elementary art next year. So we're budgeting a little bit in consumable supplies to our buildings so that they can make sure that they have some elementary art supplies within all of their teacher allocations. Second of all, at the elementary level, they need headphones for their computers. And the principals were saying, well, how do I replace that? Because is that a district responsibility? And we said, no, we're going to put it within your consumable items. That can go to you. And if you don't need all the headphone allocation, the remaining money will be transferred into depreciation so you can do something with that instead. But then it doesn't fall upon Lindsay or the administration to deal with how am I going to pay for headphones. You have it in your budget, so if you don't have any money left, then that's on you, principal, not on us, because we try to allocate accordingly. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of an increase in elementary, because we want to accommodate some of those headphones. And second of all, we're trying to get a quality headphone for our students. So when they're in there, it's not just earbuds or something else. It's appropriate for their age level. And then finally, for my purposes internally, you can see the revolving music replacement fund. And that just keeps me identified so that number one, 6, 8, and 9, 12 always have $10,000 going to them to help their music program. And then based upon, once again, enrollment, once again, a base allocation and the remaining dollar amounts for K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, depending upon the year. You know, so for example, for the 24-25 school year, elementary will get it. So they'll get budgeted $12,108 that goes toward their support for the elementary program.
And Stuart, we've had that music rotating fund for 20 years.
At
And
least,
probably-
as long as you and I have been in the district.
So I know students are charged a fee to, are they charged, I think they're charged a fee to rent instruments from the district, right?
Correct.
And so does that somewhat support this fund?
No, this one is to augment what the teachers already have. So for example, we'll just take elementary, they may see the need to do, what's the flute that they have?
Recorder.
Thank you, everybody. They may have to do a replacement of all their recorders, so the Lindsay working with the elementary music teachers will do a massive purchase of recorders that they could do. Or for example, when it goes to the high school in 2 years, they'll probably be looking at, maybe a sousaphone or something like that, that they have to replace or they want to replace. Plus working with the other music departments to making sure they have that one. The cost that's being charged for band or whatever else, that's for usage of the uniforms or obviously the rental, which then can go toward repair and maintenance of those.
And our music teachers do a good job. They know when their particular level's getting the music right. For instance, 16 years ago, working with Madison, we bought a new clavinova over at Adams. So it's kind of they plan, if they're 3-4 years out, they plan. It's usually a pretty big purchase that is needed for the music program, either at the 6-8 level or K-5 or high school. So kind of that 1 year that if they have a big ticket item, they know that that's rotating today.
This is kind of a sidebar question, and the answer may or may not be budget related. But this is the first time hearing of this. The not having elementary art, is that a budget related decision? Is that a staffing decision? What?
It was mostly a staffing decision because once the person quit and moved on, trying to find an art teacher was hard. So it became more of, can we allocate some of that money to the building level so that they can do that? I mean, we had those staff members, they resigned, but Kevin trying to find an art teacher like other ones struggles. So we felt like it was beneficial to put art into the
So
building.
yeah, maybe, and I hate to put Mrs. Douglas on the spot, but can you explain the 10-day rotation as it relates to, we only have one elementary.
Yes.
That was on a 10-day rotation. So
It was a really difficult position because she was serving 1,600 students, and so she would rotate through the schools every day. She'd be at a different school and see all of those students, and they would have 25 minutes of art. So staffing is, yes, an issue, but it also became not the best way to really teach art. And so it's not that we're still having it, but it's shifting back to the classroom. And so that's why the budget is shifting back to the buildings so that the teachers will incorporate those standards and have elementary art within their curriculum. So it's just not a pulled apart separate item, it'd be within their curriculum.
Gotcha. Is there a way to still monitor that that's happening or to give them advice from someone who, obviously I'm a former art teacher, so I see the value in elementary students having art. So I just want to make sure that would be a really easy thing to, the day got busy and I'm not an art teacher, so I don't know what to do. And it just kind of gets
Yeah,
pushed to the side.
elementary teachers are really good about incorporating art into their projects, and I think it's easy because it aligns with maybe they're doing a project or learning about something in English or language arts, and then they want to incorporate a project with it, so they're really good about that. But this summer, we're gonna work in our curriculum writing teams and make sure we're hitting those art standards, because we are still responsible for the standards, so we're gonna work in our teams and just find ways to incorporate them, and then teachers will also just plug them in their lesson plans.
Is that something that in the future, if we have a person for that, it's still on the table to bring?
Oh, I would think so. I think, it would be a discussion that obviously the board level as far as the direction for the program. questions.
Good job, Stuart.
Was this helpful?
Yes, yes.
So
I
how
think,
are you
you know-
covering the negative balances? I mean,
What?
how are you covering the negative balances that we have? Because there's quite a few very significant ones.
Well, for example, on furniture and fixtures,
Mhm.
what that does is take into account the adjusted budget minus cumberances, which is our purchase orders, minus year-to-date expended. So if you look at just the adjusted budget minus the year-to-date expended, we're still in the positive sign. And I'm looking at furniture and equipment line.
Okay.
But, I double checked with Janelle, we were up to date with all of our purchase orders being liquidated. So this is just some items that have happened within the last, couple of weeks that have gone out and we're ordering some items. I would think this is, some of the computers that are going out from the technology department. And with that, once they come in, Brian and I will then allocate the funds, because some of that should be paid out of depreciation because we have money set aside. So that's the bad part about this report, is that it shows a lot of stuff that really I wish I could cut it down for. Number one, our building principles, and number two is that anybody else sees that. Because number one, you're not really worried about the original budget, you're worried about the adjusted budget, because that's where we stand. Sometimes that year-to-date encumbrance gets people confused, and so if we could make sure we have a simpler one. And I've been working with our software company to get a report that just would show that piece and not the purchase orders outstanding, because that gets a little bit confusing.
And an object codes, a lot of times, because you have so many specific object codes, you'll see a lot of ebb and flow with each one. And it is not atypical that you'll run a negative balance in one and be really high in another one, like legal services, for instance. Depending on what happens in the district on a year, you might run a negative balance. We always look at the total at the bottom, because that whole object code, it's really the total that you can shift. Just because it was budgeted this way, doesn't mean that you can't shift some other dollars from one of the other. I mean, we look at the total of the 600,
Right.
the total of the 500.
So, for example, when you start looking at items, for example, we'll just take Adams, it's $104,000 that we budget for that next year. And I only, as Dr. Rhodes said, I only look at the bottom line, because a principal may say, well, I want 50,000 in supplies and I have 25,000 in copy costs and 25,000 for, my copier. Well, then all of a sudden, based upon what is happening in a building, a teacher may just start copying away, and all of a sudden their copy costs go up to where it's 30,000, but your supplies are dramatically less. So really, I still look at that bottom number, and I tell them, you're still fine, you're still in the right direction. Every month I send out a summary report that basically tells each principal, here's your budget, here's what you spent, here's how much you remaining in the percent that you have to do it. So I don't worry about individual line items, I worry about the total. And in that, if they're getting close, I've already had a couple of conversations with people, and we were addressing how we're going to not spend the rest of the year, compared to, some of our principals are so conservative that they roll a lot into depreciation. And every month, look at depreciation. Some of those schools have built up a sizable chunk, but that's because they understand the direction of the district. And they don't, so then that goes back to, I think it was Angela asked the question, well, does this money go away? On some level, it doesn't, because then they're able to save that for items that they see in the future, such as, we're dealing with Madison and trying to put a new signboard out in front of it. And so Robin has had some money set aside in depreciation for working through the process.
What were the general supplies for?
So that's a good question. I forgot to address that. So when you look at the total allocation for the building, of, 1.3 that I'm budgeting for next year, or last year, 1.319 for them. Portion of the supply budget is what the principals have allocated based upon their feeling in the district that they want to put into supplies compared to furniture and equipment compared to other areas. So that's why the supply budget is where it is, because principals have allocated a bulk of their money towards supplies within their goal. And I could, for example, and I'll just hit them, like the high school teaching supplies, $100,000. Adams is, just looking through here, is 58,000. So all of them have put a lot of their share within there. And then this also covers not only this, but SPED, student services, elementary guidance puts money into their psychologists, media. And I'm skipping over it because a lot of them is between $2,000 and $5,000 for that building site or location.
So Stuart, when we put together these building budgets, obviously the building administrator kind of oversees their budget for their building and how that's distributed. Are there, I don't want to say rules, but guidelines or procedures put in place for types of things they may utilize those funds in? Just thinking about, making sure that we're using funds the best and most responsible way to have the greatest impact on student learning. Are there kind of some guidelines in place for them on how to do that?
Number one, I'm relying upon their expertise in regards to what is needed in the classroom. So a lot of times, if it's under $250, that's at their discretion that they can do. Anything above 250, number one has to be on PO. Number two has to come through, so I'm able to see it. And for the most part, it's them purchasing some items of instruction within the classroom. So I'm relying on them, but if there is a question about something, I won't approve the PO. I've rejected a few and sent back questions in regards to what's going on, why it's the reason, because I may not agree with that. Or I'll bring in Dr. Word to the process to make sure that what is going on in this building is effective. So probably the guideline would be how a purchase order is done and the threshold between 250 and so forth. But then after that, it becomes more of an instructional guidance and watching the principal conditions.
And Mr. Simpson meets in the fall with each principal, goes over budget. They get a monthly report. And then I see some reminders that come out of the finance office as well. And then you and Janelle sit down weekly, and that's all they do is they have a block of time that it's all purchase orders. And that's an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours that they go. So there's pretty good oversight on building expenditures as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stuart. So the next piece is the legislative update, and I'm just going to quickly share. I was on the Zoom with Senator Jacobson this morning. And this is his weekly Zoom. He did a little bit of a recap on the legislative session, and he shared some of his thoughts on LD 1402, which was the opportunity scholarships. One of the things that I wanted to share about that was that he said that for him, it wasn't necessarily about public versus private, but he said he's a big supporter of public education, but it was more about giving low-income students the opportunity to attend private schools so that they can get the education that their family sees is the best fit for them. He also talked a little bit about LB 25, which the governor vetoed. And he said he was not ever in support of that bill. That was a bill from Senator Wayne. And there's some really good information about that in the newspaper. There were a few other bills that he addressed that didn't relate directly to education. But he did say that he is on a committee that will be working on, since LB 388 did not pass. He's on a committee that they're working toward property tax relief, and he said that he couldn't give any details about that now, but that the group is working together to put together a plan. And if they think they can get the 33 votes in support of their plan, they will have a special session. He said he feels the special session is likely, but then he said we'll see. So there's nothing for certain on that at the moment. So stay tuned, I guess. And then he said that he thinks that one of the biggest challenges in the legislature as far as education is that it keeps getting harder to fight each time because the divide between rural and urban Nebraska and the different challenges that are faced by each. There's just a lot of misunderstanding between what people see in education in the eastern half of the state and the western half of the state. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we see a lot of kind of Omaha Lincoln specific bills versus, you know, things that would benefit us. And sometimes the things that they do in Lincoln and Omaha actually hurt us. And that was something else that he talked about. Just another piece is that I thanked him for his work in defense of the public schools and told him that we especially appreciated his willingness to have conversations with us and to work with Dr. Rhodes and Mr. Simpson and learn about the things that we see as concerns within our school or our area. And I mentioned to him that as Governor Pillen has challenged the public schools to do a better job at telling their story, that's what we intend to do. And that's kind of one of the things that we talked about with our board self-assessment and focusing on advocacy, is that we really want to be able to tell our story better. And so hopefully we will. I'll turn some time over to Dr. Rhodes and Mr. Altig and Mr. Simpson for anything they have to share.
Sure. So I put together a summary packet. Now, these are more specific legislation that are education related. So we'll give you some time to kind of look through that a little bit. Some are probably a little more ominous than others, obviously. You know, so they did adjourn on a week ago today. Kind of the way that it's set up with, you know, for these last two sessions of the 108th legislature, because there was so much happening on the floor, they just went through legislation like crazy the last 5 to 6 days of the session. So what that allowed or didn't allow to have happen is just kind of the normal process of kind of the legislative branch and executive branch kind of oversight on one another. So once you had LB 25, that was the bill that was vetoed by Governor Pillen, there was not any legislative time for that to go back to the legislature to override that veto. Now, whether or not it would have had enough votes, I think is probably debatable, but it just really, it was kind of a governmental breakdown in my opinion, just on the way that kind of worked out, because there wasn't an opportunity for the legislature in terms of kind of that oversight piece that they have on the executive branch.
Can I interrupt you on that piece? Just one of the things that Senator Jacobson said that they're considering as a rule for next year is that each senator is going to be limited to 20 bills.
Yes.
So we'll see if that happens.
And they did, Senator Arch, the speaker, talked about that at the beginning of this session. I think it's pretty difficult when they talk about changing rules that have been established for the unicameral for as many years as we've had that unicameral. It can be kind of a touchy subject, but you know, we have a total of 17 seats that will be open 15 of those are term limited out, and then we have 2 other senators that are seeking not to run for reelection. So that's a pretty massive group of freshmen that'll be coming in next year, and we'll have to see what that'll do to the floor and what that does to votes as we get into next January and they begin the 109th legislature. And I'll let kind of Skip and Mr. Simpson jump in. My plan is to allow you to have some time with this, and then we'll have a full report at the May board meeting, and that way, if there are questions or comments, then we can answer those. I have not heard from KSB as of yet on the impact of this legislation on policy or student handbooks. I was a part of an NCSA Zoom conference earlier this week. That was actually conducted by Perry Law Firm. They indicated that we'll have some policy changes, obviously, not as many as we probably had a year ago. And we will definitely have some student handbook changes as well. So I guess with that, I would ask Mr. Simpson or Skip. I don't know NASB, if you've heard much.
What NASB is gonna do basically the same thing here. And they will be sending that out to every school and school board members the same way. I think they're in the process of putting it together. I think after the session, they relaxed a bit because Colby was up there, you know, from 9 in the morning till that one night, I think it was 11:25 or whatever they adjourned. They will be coming out. The question Joanne brought up earlier, whether there will be a legislative call a session for the summer is a big question. Because they need to have 33 votes in order for that to go through. And you've got a big quandary between Omaha, Lincoln, and the rest of the state, as you alluded to. And some of the senators that are leaving are the big pushers of some of this.
Yes.
388, and they have, I don't want to put it nicely, they have not really gotten along with some other senators who just decided that was enough. So we'll see what happens. It could happen, and he could call a session, a special session, the governor can. But whether or not anything will happen, that's why they're gonna try to work something in, and we'll have to see what it is. But for now, we're gonna be just the way we've been going. Correct, Stuart?
The only thing I could add is that we're watching 388, which died. That was a big concern because I was gonna change the whole formula for state aid.
Right.
And now, Dr. Rhodes heard, and I also heard Vice Wilson that he's told everybody, fine, if you do property tax reduction, do it next year, because state aid has already been certified for 24, 25. Let them deal with that, and then we'll deal with property tax reduction. So
Specifically, what was said is the NDE has worked with the governor's office. And if there is a special session and anything would change with school funding, TOSA, that would not go into effect until 2025, 2026. So
I would add that I mentioned to Senator Jacobson that I did appreciate the discussions around 388, and primarily because it gave us an opportunity to be able to share with our constituents about property taxes and school funding and how that all works. And so I think even though there's a lot of talk about that, there's still a lot of misunderstanding, and there's been a lot of ways that it's helped us to understand how that portion works too. So I think even though they didn't get what they wanted, there has been some positive outcomes from it anyway. And of course, we all hope that our property taxes can get lowered, but we still need to fund our schools, so. All right, we'll move on to the strategy 2 update, and I will turn that over to Dr. Rhodes.
thank you. Okay, so tonight is strategy 2, and we will bring back an update on strategy 3 at the May committee of the whole. So this is pretty specific, that we will employ high quality employees across the district. And so we're gonna kind of do this as a cabinet group, and we'll ask for some assistance. So we have three specific results for strategy 2, like we did for strategy 1. And that is, 2.1 is to implement a thorough hiring process, and underneath that is market open positions through various media outlets. Utilize a district selection process that attracts high quality professionals. Review turnover trends to identify potential selection and retention issues. And lastly, implement a collaborative selection process for all hires. And the evidence with that, I will turn over to Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Dr. Rowe. Yeah, I put a lot up there. I'm not gonna read through that all to you. You can look at that, but what I really want the evidence to show is all the different things that we do to market our positions. And a couple of new ones that are on there, that NASHA K-12 job board, that was a small investment on our part of $850 for the year. And our announcements go on with other schools across the whole United States. So we researched and found that. We try to put our jobs everywhere that we can. So social media, even Central Community College has a site now that they put out to all districts that he wants to put your jobs on here. So we have all those listed everywhere that we possibly can. And then you can see the career fairs up there that we attend. And we're gonna look at adding maybe Black Hills State back next year in University of Wyoming. We've looked at those markets. They're pretty tough markets. Wyoming pays a lot of money for their staff. It's hard to pull anyone out of Wyoming, but we've hired 4 different people from Wyoming. So we want to look at Wyoming as a possibility as well. The process, the district process, obviously we do all those things and then we advertise those positions when people resign. And the biggest part, that's why I gave you that sheet of paper, because we really want to tell the story of North Platte Public School District and come grow with us. So thanks again, Brandon, for your creative advertising materials. The next process, obviously, the candidates apply, and then I get a notification or everyone's on that immediately. And then that's where I call them and begin to set up that interview. And then we set up a team based on whatever that opening may be. So obviously, if there's music involved or whatever level it is, we want the experts of that to be involved in that interview, to set up that interview team. Then we do internal communication, let everybody know internally. We do a lot of process of protocols and paperwork that has to be done, so all the parties know everything that's happening. Onboard them, and then we always assign them a mentor, and then we start our process with BD with T&L. I think last month I reviewed some trends for hiring, so we'll continue that process. I'll keep the board up to date on those trends. And then we also look at obviously what's going across the state and nationally as well to look at those trends. And it's Dr. Rhodes mentioned earlier, there's 1,000 openings just in Nebraska. And I looked today just in our region, which we're Midwest, region 2, there was probably 75 jobs just in our area alone. So yeah, plenty of jobs to have teachers kind of have an opportunity to go where they want to go. The other piece that we do staff stay interviews instead of, we do the exit, but we want to find out what's going on with our new staff. So I created a little Google form and I send that out to our new staff about October, which is about time that we'll get into the next slide about their first evaluation after that. So then we find out there's things that we need to assist them with or support them. So we have that stay interview. And then obviously at the end, when folks leave, we have an exit survey, and then we go over that with the cabinet and look for trends again, if there's anything that we're missing within our district. So the cabinet looks at all of that information as well. Questions about the evidence? Yes, I did read it to you.
Well,
Skipped a couple.
if you went back, if we go back a slide, and maybe I'm not gonna be able to, so Brendan, can you hook up here? I'm almost out of battery here. So when we looked at that bullet number 4, it talked about a collaborative process for recruitment. And we can be obviously our best recruiters, and our teachers can be our best recruiters as well. And so, you know, we work as a team. We talk about staffing every Monday afternoon. We're always looking at staffing and what we can potentially do and maybe think outside of the box. So it is really a highly, more so than it's ever been, right?
More so than
Because
ever.
we
Even-
collaborate.
Even 2 years ago.
So,
Are those, the data that you get from the exit surveys, are those, is that information that could be shared with the board as well? So that if there are things in there that are
We gotta.
policy related or negotiation related or things that the board has some control over, that we would be aware of what those issues may be as well.
Right, we can discuss that in cabinet of how we wanna share that exit information of what you wanna see. I thought maybe I'd put together like a trend, take all the data and then put it into a trend and show you that way.
Yeah, I
That's
think
okay.
that would be really good for us to see. I appreciate that you guys spend so much time in it, but I imagine there are probably some things that we could be doing on our end to.
Well, and it's nice to hear the positive along
Right.
with the areas that we need to grow, but it's really nice to hear that positive too. So I think the board would want to hear those pieces as well, and then the areas that we want to grow.
Kyle, are you able to stop my screen share?
Yeah.
So, indicator 2.2 really deals with what we do from a standpoint of onboarding, the professional development piece, how we're supporting all our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our nurses, our counselors, our administrators from kind of a professional development piece. And I apologize, I pulled up Mr. Simpson. I can't hear what that is.
I can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, if you want to start
we're
talking
almost
about
there.
evidence. And then we'll-
Sure, so we kind of start the onboarding process in July with our new staff, where they come spend just, an hour. In July, they get an introduction to their programs and the technology, they get a new computer, so we start that in July, they meet with payroll departments and get all of that paperwork settled. And then they have a couple weeks to kind of digest all that information and get familiar with the technology. Then in August, they come back for 4 days, and in that 4 days, we have a lot of training on district curriculum that we use. It's kind of a collaboration between all of the directors. Special education has different information and training that they give. Policies and procedures of the district with Kevin and Brandy, Boys Town behavior management. And Brandon, even down to communication and how we communicate with families for those new teachers as well. So, a lot of training. In that time, we like to build some time for them to be in their buildings as well, so they can work in their classrooms, get to know their administration of their building. From there, we have the annual mentor mentee luncheon. I know you guys have seen or been part of that before, so that's where they meet their mentors. And then throughout the year, we have that Norfolk Public Schools Mentor Mentee Handbook, which guides them through monthly meetings that they meet as a cohort with the building, all the new staff in that building with their administration. And they go through that handbook together, and it's kind of a checklist, a monthly checklist to make sure that we hit everything that we think that's coming up throughout the year as well. And then, for all of our staff, we have our monthly professional development, that's on curricular resources, good instructional practices, behavior management, special education, para-educator trainings. We've done, English language learner training, MAN training for certified and classified staff, standard response protocol, professional learning communities, which is really going to be coming up next year. And then just all the other training regarding our specialized content areas. Sometimes the music teachers attend a special conference, or the PD teachers have a session that they go to. So lots of different training structure.
And I think it'd be important to say that when we looked at all that, we analyzed it and thought, we're giving them way too much at once. So that's why we threw in that July date for this year. So they come in and get their computer and their badge and their keys and get those things, because we felt that and some of the feedback we received was overwhelmed. And if you can see that, that's a lot of information to go through. So we split that out to help those teachers that wouldn't have so much at one time.
So I know one of the concerns that has been brought to us and that you are aware of is with training around our paraprofessionals. And are those conversations looking like we're gonna be able to add additional training for those individuals next year? or-
Yeah, potentially, we're having those conversations. Mrs. Johnson does a whole para training along with Mrs. Busher. And we go over a lot of different areas of just the kind of the skill set, the job responsibilities for paraprofessionals. You want to talk about MANT training a little bit? I don't know if we've really visited with the board about what
Sure.
that training is.
Yeah, so the whole MANT training, and Brandy can jump in too, because she's kind of an expert on this as well, but the whole MANT training is actually only a few people per building, because that really has to do with de-escalation strategies and then also restraint. And so for paraeducators, we actually do the first 3 chapters of the MANT training, which is de-escalation. So that really is good for everyone. A lot of our teachers already have that de-escalation piece, but for our paraeducators, it's really important for them to have it. So, actually Lindsay and I do a whole para training at the beginning of the school year. And then we're actually working on an expectation document. So that expectation of paraeducators. So then the resource teachers and the principals can go through those expectations throughout the school year. And then we have another para training where it's divided out into 4 sections. So like Brandy has an hour training with her department. We have an hour training of special education, which is usually based on behavior and de-escalation. And then we also were doing like circle of security. So just different rotations that they get in a small amount of time. So they get that training.
If we have teachers or other staff members that come on mid-year, what does the training for them look like? Are that they able to get kind of a condensed version of what we have here, or what do we do for those individuals?
Yeah, for teachers, it's really based, I'll talk from a resource standpoint or a special education standpoint, is that they have that mentor. And so that mentor is really important because those mentors meet with the new staff members every month. Lots of times it's probably every week. But it's a requirement every month. And then we actually all of the directors have gotten together and have built that mentoring handbook. So it's a 2-year process. And so they're constantly with their mentor, asking questions. There's questions in that handbook that we've designed together. So then it's more of a rich conversation than just, oh yeah, I have this done. It really is like curious questions that they can have a deep conversation about.
One of the pieces too, that, oh, sorry.
We've trained for mid-year, so if we brought a staff in and we feel like we're putting them in a situation where they might have to physically restrain, we would accommodate a training for them in the middle of the year, just to make sure they have what they need. And then we have jumped the mid-year staff and then at the next year into the new year staff training, for that. And then also with Boys Town, we invited the paras to all of our Boys Town behavior training. So when we brought Boys Town out to do those professional developments, all of our paras were invited to do that training.
And really, that was a decision we made a little over a year ago, was to start to include pairs in training. I think we provide more training for our professionals than we have in the past. Would that be a correct statement? But that was a conscientious decision that the cabinet made at that time. We just kind of felt like that was a group that, we were always talking about professional development, and it was always really geared towards certificated staff and teachers, and we kind of changed that mindset and that philosophy a little bit. I think, John, that's a really good question, because we have actually recently started to talk about mid-year hires in particular, because it used to be so infrequent, especially with teachers. I mean, very rarely were you hiring a teacher in the middle of the year. And now, if we can get a teacher in the middle of the year, we're gonna hire them. And so we've had to think a little bit differently. And quite honestly, there's been times that we have forgotten about to tell them this, that, or the other thing, because it's just, that hasn't been our normal routine. So we've been more.
Yeah, piggybacking on that, one of the pieces that we use is if the person's available, we get them into the school like in December. So the person we hired in November, we had him in the school doing some transition work prior to it. So that's kind of been our saving grace so far, because all those staff members were able to be in North Platte in December. We hired two of them that started in January. That's a great question, probably.
I have two things. So a shout out to our man trainers. We actually have two man trainers on staff, Maggie and Jeff. And so they really do take that whole piece on of who's certified, who needs recertified, who needs more training around this area. And then also our autism team. So we actually have I think I've talked a little bit about this. We have an autism team that comes together once a month and actually goes out in schools and helps programming for those students who have autism. They are actually working on videos, and they're like short 5-10 minute videos that not only teachers can watch, but parents can watch. And they just give really good, just quick tips, tricks to work with students, not only with autism, but it's called like Structure Teach. It really works on pairing with individuals. And so just getting that para to work with students with disabilities. So those are available now, but we'll do a big launch here over the summer, so.
Brandon, you want to go on 2.3? Okay, so 2.3, utilize an evaluation system for all staff. Train staff on district evaluation process, train administrators and supervisors on the implementation of protocols of that evaluation process, and ensure fidelity of the district evaluation processes. So several years ago, the district adopted really the Nebraska teacher and principal frameworks, which is SEED, and you can go on the evidence, Brandon, thank you. And which really a lot of school districts across the state did. So this is kind of a implementation that began with the Department of Education, really standards that the department felt were important for all teachers and all administrators to meet. And so with that, from the teacher standpoint, I turn it over to Mr. Milser.
Yeah, a couple years ago, we looked at our evaluation process and we brought in teachers, directors, principals, and we moved to the supporting educator effectiveness through development through NDE. And I'll just read their little statement here because I think it's pretty powerful. Because everybody agreed that we wanted to move to this system. Supporting educator effectiveness through development, C, is a comprehensive approach to ensuring access to quality educators for all students, especially the most disadvantaged, and strengthening and maintaining teacher and principal effectiveness through the state. C serves as the foundation for the paradigm shift from top-down compliance to a system of support and development of the whole teacher, the whole principal, which impacts the school's ability to support the whole child. So we really like this evaluation system, and what it does, our tenure, our probationary teachers, obviously we have them for 3 years on probation. So they get 2 observations, 1 per semester, go through their pre-conference, have their observation, get their post-conference. And then we do a mid-year check-in as well, mid-year evaluation on all those folks. And then in the second semester, we do that second observation, obviously, because what our focus is student success. That's what we're looking at. So we want to make sure our teachers are being evaluated so that there's pieces there we want to grow and coach them through that process. Then they continue through that process for 3 years, and then they go into tenure on that 4th year. So those individuals then have that 1 observation per year. And then we also add official walkthroughs. So the principal walks through the classroom, notes everything down, puts that into our Talent Ed system. I think last I checked, there was 320 walkthroughs that were recorded that are official. And then there's the non-official where principals are in the classroom all the time, being an educational leader that we want them to be. So through that process, it's all done in Talent Ed. And I and Carol can kind of manage that and then put out different pieces to principals to follow up on. So I watch that weekly to see where evaluations are, where we need to follow up, and then support those principals and making sure those evaluations are complete. Obviously, that's where we retain our teachers is through that process to have that evaluation.
And are the building level principals doing those evaluations?
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
And it is a very comprehensive system. When you look at the workflow within Talent Ed from the beginning of an evaluation to the end, I don't know how many items are across there. There are a lot of items across there. Now, some of them are tasks performed by the teacher. And some of those are tasks that are performed by the administrator as well. And that is similar to our administrators as well. And you've heard me talk a little bit about quarterly accountability meetings. That's something that I started a year ago with our building principals. And so every quarter, there is a standard that's a task for the building principal, and there's 7 questions over each standard, and we have 4 standards. So they'll answer those 7 questions on quarter 1. We set up our accountability meetings, and then we look at some of their established goals. And then we go over those questions that they turned in and kind of talk about the big rocks. So we do that quarterly. I come back to the office and I record all that within Talent Ed. And then the signature part of that goes back and forth electronically. But we do physically meet with our administrators in terms of the collection of that information and that data. And then at the end of the year, we have our summative evaluation with all our administrators. And again, that is very comprehensive in the system as well, that has outlined all those standards. And then I'm putting in my documentation from all those quarterly visits and all the visits and informal conversations that we have, if it's applicable to one of those standards that we put. So it is an overall pretty encompassing appraisal system overall. And I don't know how long we've been utilizing that Talent Ed program.
How long is it?
We probably have had that for
10 years.
Since I was the HR secretary.
Okay, there you go. Been a minute.
showing your age.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? So, you know, this strategy is really about the recruitment and then that retention piece. What are we doing to retain? You know, Mr. Mills has done a nice job with some data grab as it relates to annual data with kind of retention. And, you know, we've got kind of a good trend going right now, and we'll continue to monitor that. We know we need to continue to support our people, and we know that in this day and age, retention is as important as it's ever been. And then, of course, this last piece is really the appraisal and how we can help to support and if people need to improve, help them improve and help with some guidance in terms of that.
So that would be my question. If we do identify the teacher who there's room for improvement,
Yeah.
what does that look like? Does the principal have that meeting or their collaborations with other?
Yeah, and we actually, in Talent Ed, we actually have a form for that, several different forms, Matt. Great question. Forgot to mention that. So if there is some issues and some growth, then we put them on a plan, or it could be an intensive plan. It depends on the situation. Then we give them different interventions to do, so that we can see them grow. So we want to get them where that student success is, and then we evaluate after that. Yeah, so there's several different ways that we can do that. The other piece I have to mention though too, because one of the main reasons we switched to this was the professionals. We were lacking professionalism in the Marzano evaluation. And this system covers professional ethics and advocacy. And we're really missing that to evaluate the teachers. So that's the piece we really wanted to make sure we had in our evaluation.
And I think that it gets misconstrued a little bit. I think appraisal systems are meant to help people improve. That's, and I don't think they're always viewed that way necessarily, but you know, it's collecting information and data through the course of time. And then determining, are we where we need to be in terms of the standards of the appraisal? And if we're not, then we have a whole improvement process. So we can help people get to the level that we think they're capable of getting. So.
And have we received feedback from our teachers with this new system? Do they like it? Is it
They were part of the whole pilot to come up with. We had them represented from all the different schools that they bought in completely. Because that Marzano, not that it was negative or bad, but it was really intense. I think there's 43 different indicators.
Yeah.
Here we have 5 standards. And it matches the principal standards with C as well. So just kind of a common sense thing that seemed to fit really well.
All right, any other questions? Thank you. I am going to, in a moment, entertain a motion to adjourn. I just want to thank you all, first of all, though, this has been a longer meeting. I feel like it's been a really good meeting, very informative. So thank you for sticking with it as we gone through these conversations tonight. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Roll call.
Angela Lacy,
Aye.
Matthew Peterson,
Hi.
Ellen Garrett.
Aye.
Joanne Green,
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Dave Buckley.
aye.
There we go.
We're
Be
adjourned.
careful going that